Roll call, please.
Committee member Baranek,
Here.
committee member Funk,
Here.
committee member Schmidt,
Yes.
and Phil, did you say Jeff Van Den Eyck was not going to make it?
That is correct. I don't think he's ever able to make the 2 p.m. time. That's one of the reasons that we were searching for another time, and that'll be a discussion topic after our development review item.
Okay, so Chairperson Newsom.
Here.
So we have 4 present and 1 absent. Thank you.
I ask for an approval of agenda.
So move.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Yes. Committee member Baranek,
Aye.
committee member Funk,
Aye.
committee member Schmidt,
Yes.
Chairperson Newsom.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
At this point in the meeting, we'll call it, we'll open it to public comment for anything that's not listed on the agenda. If you're on the phone calling in, please press *9 on your phone to raise your hand. If you are logged into this online session, you can also use the button down on the bottom to raise your hand to speak.
I'm not seeing anyone raising their hand.
Okay. Give it another few seconds. If anybody is on the phone calling in for public comment.
Oh,
*9.
we do have one person raising. Oh, okay. They raised. Oh, they're raising their hand and unraising it. Okay. I'm going to allow Diana to speak.
Okay, go ahead, Diana. You will have to unmute yourself. Joys of technology. It has so many meanings in one sentence. Diana Costu, did you want to speak? There you go.
Okay, hello everybody. This is Diana. I just wanted to make sure that you can actually see me and you can hear me.
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
I see a picture of you.
Okay, all right.
Diana, are you, I know that you're the applicant's representative for the second project. Are you hoping to make a presentation or just?
Yes. It was under my impression that we only had one project for today, but I guess that changed.
It did change. We have another item first, and then if you have a presentation, Mariah will help you turn on your share screen when that time comes.
Okay, sounds great.
Have anybody else wishing to speak? Public comment for nothing, for items not on the agenda.
I am not one.
Okay, so we'll close public comment. Can I ask for approval of the consent calendar?
I'll approve.
Question of order. Can this be approved since it's the minutes from the last meeting and only 2 members here were at that meeting? Do the rest of us, the other 2 of us who were not at the meeting, need to abstain?
No, you guys
You'll actually have to abstain. You can actually approve those minutes if you've read the minutes and understand the situation. That's what our city clerk has told us. Isn't that right, Annette?
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay, yes, that's what, I checked on that actually today, and that is what Amanda said, that as long as you have read the minutes, you can vote on them. And I would like to mention that I do need to ask to add my name to the first page. I forgot to put those on those minutes, if you would take a look at that. And so yes, you can approve it without being at the meeting as long as you've read the minutes.
I would second the motion to approve the minutes that was made by member Baranek and ask that it be amended to include Annette Manier's name in the staff, among the staff present.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and do a roll call. Committee Member Baranek,
Yes.
Committee Member Funk,
Yes,
Committee Member Schmidt.
Yes, and I did read the minutes.
Thank you. Chairperson Newsom.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you.
At this point in the meeting, we'll open it up for development project review with design review of a 6-unit residential apartment building at 10205 El Camino Real.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me share my screen. Mariah, can you let me share my screen?
Yes, I made you a co-host, but let me see.
For some reason, I don't have the option to. Oh, never mind. There we go. All right, can everybody hear me and see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So the first project we are reviewing today is 10205 El Camino Real. It's the Mcadara housing expansion. It's the expansion of an affordable housing site on the south end of town. So this is the aerial view of the existing site. It's adjacent to El Camino Real and Musselman Drive, which is located adjacent to the state of California property to the south. This is the zoning map. The site is surrounded by high-density residential multifamily, or RMF 24. To the south of the site is public zoning, and to the west of the site is low-density residential multifamily, or RMF 10. A little bit on the project background. As I mentioned, it's an affordable housing site. There are existing affordable housing units, low income, and the site is managed by the San Luis Obispo Housing Authority, or HASLO. There are 19 units in 4 residential buildings, and there are also some community facilities on site, including a community room that has laundry facilities and an existing play area on site. These are a couple photos of the existing site conditions. On the top left is the driveway entrance from El Camino Real and some of the parking areas and some of the existing apartment buildings on site. The bottom right is the community building, and that is a shared community space with the laundry facilities, as I mentioned. On the top left is just another photo of the frontage of the property with the existing sign. And then on the bottom right is the existing play area towards the rear of the property. And that orange fencing is up because I believe that was after all the rain we had. So the playground was closed. So the applicant is proposing to construct 6 new units. And this will be the addition of 1 additional 2-story residential building towards the rear of the property. It will be a similar layout to what's existing on site and a similar design to what's existing on site. In order to construct the new building, they are relocating the play area to the southern end of the site to accommodate the new building. And then, as it is an affordable housing projects, they are seeking a few development concessions that are consistent with state density bonus law. And we'll talk about these in a couple slides. Or we'll talk about it now. The affordable housing law is based on the affordability levels of the site. they will be required to place a 55-year deed restriction on the property, and this will allow them to meet the state affordable housing law concessions. And these concessions are generally reductions in development standards. And under California Government Code 65915E, because the site is 100% affordable, they're allowed up to 4 concessions or reductions in development standards. So for this project, in order to accommodate the 6 additional units, they are requesting reduced parking, reduced indoor storage, and reduced parking lot landscaping. And we'll go into detail in these as we go through the slides. So this is the proposed site design. You can see the existing 4 buildings on site that are not highlighted. And then in green, towards the rear of the property, is the proposed additional building that will accommodate the 6 units. This building is 2 stories with 2 one-bedroom units and 1 2-bedroom unit on the first floor and 3 one-bedroom units on the second floor. Adjacent to the new building will be the relocated play area, which was previously existing where the new proposed building is proposed. Towards the front of the property is the community building, and that will expand slightly as part of the project. And then in red are the additional parking spaces. And note there's 25 existing parking spaces, but they are removing 1 parking space to allow for an accessible parking area. So the requested parking reduction under the state affordability law, the Tuscaloosa Municipal Code for this project and the amount of units that are proposed in total would require 53 parking spaces based on our code standards. Because it is 100% affordable, the maximum density bonus parking requirements that jurisdiction can apply is outlined in the column to the right. And that would be 39 parking spaces. But because they are allowed up to 4 concessions under state law, they are requesting a further reduction from the 39 parking spaces to 29 parking spaces. And just to remind you, there are 25 existing, so they will be adding 4 parking spaces in addition to converting an existing parking or 2 existing parking spaces to ADU spots. This is the proposed landscaping for the site. They do meet site landscape standards in terms of landscape lot coverage. The site is the landscaping is characterized by native trees and shrubs and grasses. They are requesting a reduction for parking lot shade trees. Here's an example of the architectural design of the proposed community building. As you can see, the painted fascia, the asphalt shingle roofing, the vinyl windows, and the smooth stucco painted walls. And here is an example of the architectural design for the proposed new building. It is similar to the community building and similar to what's existing on site, and has the same design features as the community building. And here is an example of the first floor layout for the proposed building. As you can see, there are 2 one-bedroom units and 1 two-bedroom unit. And the second story would have 3 one-bedroom units on site. And just to note, these are all rental units as well. So the concession summary, or the requested reduced development standards summary that they are allowed to request under state law. Again, is parking, a reduction from 39 to 29 spaces, a reduction in the landscape requirements for the parking lot. So a reduction in the required shade trees and a reduction of reduced parking lot landscape requirements. And the Tascadero Municipal Code requires 100 cubic feet of indoor storage space in addition to bedroom closet space per unit in RMF zones. So they are requesting a reduction of 100 cubic feet to 40 cubic feet per unit. And again, these concessions are allowed under state law. The city would have to make findings in order to deny these concessions. And those findings, at least for parking, would require a parking study that would show adverse impacts on the site. Just to go into a bit more detail on the parking, there is existing street parking adjacent to the site. And there is a transit stop in front of the building that has relatively, I think it's hourly frequency, and that's an RTA, Regional Transit Authority operated bus stop. So staff recommendations are listed on the DRC action form. We are requesting that they provide shade trees at a minimum 30-foot intervals as required per the code. If they cannot meet those requirements, we are requesting that they request a concession for reduced parking lot landscape requirements. We'd also like them to provide clarification on parking requirements that indicate compliance with state law, parking ratios, and the request to reduce parking requirements beyond the ratios outlined in state law. And that would be beyond the maximum ratios we are allowed to require in compliance with state law. And then we are also requesting that prior to issuance of building permits, that they provide evidence of the 55-year affordable deed restrictions on the property and on all units on the property. And the project will be required to proceed to Planning Commission for approval as it exceeds the 12-unit requirement for a use permit. So a couple DRC items for discussion today would be site design, landscaping, and architectural design. And I believe the applicant is on the phone and would also like to give a brief presentation. So maybe we can hold our questions for after the applicant presentation.
Phil, you want us to ask, you want our committee to ask our questions amongst each other first?
That was vague, the comment.
Pardon?
Comment that was just made was in and out. Could not hear it completely.
Okay, so the question to Phil is, would you like the applicant to present, or can we discuss it amongst the committee's members at this time?
Oh, thank you. Much clearer. I didn't hear anything you said previously.
That's okay.
Thank you. So at this point in time, let's, if you have questions for staff, let's open it up to those questions just between staff and the DRC committee members. If you don't have questions, we can go straight to the applicant's presentation. So that is entirely up to the committee at this point.
Okay. Emily, I can't see you on my screen, so I'll have you go first. And then, do you have any questions at this time?
At this time, one minor question for staff. Am I correct in understanding that they will be required to submit an updated complete landscape design?
Correct. We're going to work with the applicant to see if they could accommodate the landscape requirements for the shade trees.
Okay.
And if they can't meet those requirements and maintain the parking that they need for the site, they'll have to request an additional concession, which they're allowed to do.
Excellent. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Susan Funk.
Sure, thank you. With regard to the play area, and I'm
Mhm.
assuming that we have, and since we've got multi-bedroom units, that we've got families with young children.
Mhm.
So can we talk about the extent to which the play area is designed for what age of children it's really targeted for, and how well it is protected from kids wandering off? It's going to move a little closer to Musselman, which gets a fair
Mhm.
amount of traffic. And just want to know how safe that's going to be for children.
Sure. There are some details in your packet, at least on the structures of what's going to be in the play area. There could be some details on if there's fencing that'll be surrounding the play area. I think the applicant will be able to speak to that a little bit more in detail. I do know that I believe there's one more row of residential area before Musselman. So there is that barrier from the roadway in the play area as well.
Okay. And how is, will any accommodation be made for charging any electric vehicles that residents might own in the future?
That is not part of the proposed parking area, no.
Okay. And are there, I noticed we're accommodating ADA parking. Are there ADA units?
I believe they're all accessible, but I will let the applicant speak to that.
Fair enough. And I know that it's quite a big parking concession. Perhaps the applicant could enlighten us on, but this is, and many of these people will be working, and the city's largest employer is right next door.
That is
To
correct.
what extent are people living in on this property already working in Ash? It takes away a lot of need for parking.
Yeah.
If anybody is.
They did not provide any information on employment statistics for the residents. I know there are a few residents that will be speaking today. As I mentioned, there is the transit stop in front of the parking area with, I think, hourly RTA bus frequency. And yeah, perhaps the applicant could speak to that as well on the need for the significant reduced parking area.
Perfect. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Dennis?
Yes, thank you. A few things. I'd be interested in hearing from the applicant the experience that the housing authority has with parking. Obviously, there's units in this location and maybe others that they service. And so what is the demand? Is there any statistical information about the demand for parking in a complex like this? When I see one-bedroom units, I'm thinking there could be two people living in a one-bedroom unit, a young couple, and the allotment is only one parking space for each of those units. And I'm wondering also about the guest parking areas. I noticed that there are 5 of them. Are they guest parking areas? Are they signed as being guest parking areas, or are they free? Are they fair game for anyone to use? And then with respect to the concessions in general, does the state have any percentages of or recommendations about how much the concessions can be? In other words, there's a reduction in parking of 25% or something like that they could provide. And also with the storage, because that's not a lot of storage area. And as I think we all know, storage is always in demand in my house, and then maybe other people's homes too. Then lastly, on the deed restrictions, in terms of the affordability, is it based on monthly I guess, monies that people bring home and so it can change from month to month, or is it an annual thing? How does that work? Thank you.
Sure. So I'll go ahead and answer a few of those. So the affordability is based on 80% of the area median income, and Haslow as an affordable housing developer and manager, that is part of their mission to provide that housing. So I don't believe that level changes, and the deed restrictions will further ensure that they stay affordable for 55 years. And I'm sure the applicant can speak to that as well. In terms of the parking requirements, the maximum that we can require is listed on this slide under the maximum density bonus requirements. And they're requesting further reduced parking from that 39 maximum.
That I understand. It's more of, does the state say, okay, 39, let me get my calculator out, 39, 53 divide. So that's a reduction of roughly 27%. In the concession requirements, does the state say it could be any percentage, or is it can be no less than half, and so on? And what I was asking with respect to guest parking was, I would rather, if guest parking is signed and it has to be protected in some way, I would rather have the 5 spots available to the occupants of the complex, and then guests can park out on the street.
Yeah, I don't believe they're assigning the guest parking, or it won't be strictly guest parking. Sure, the applicant can speak to that a little bit more. And then in terms of that percentage that the state might allow or require, that's something we could certainly look into and provide before.
I'll just provide a little more information on that. The state doesn't set specific concession thresholds. What they do, though, is they set maximum standards that you can apply to an affordable project. So for example, they'll put maximum parking requirements on us that basically say, if you've got a 1-bedroom unit, you can't require more than 1 space. For a 2-bedroom, you can't require more than 2 if the project meets certain affordability requirements. So they do things like that. Since this goes to Planning Commission, we look at some of those things, and it's kind of a negotiation in terms of what works. What the state does allow us to do is they do allow us discretion on these concessions when they start to create public health safety issues or issues that are going to conflict with building code or fire code. So we want to be reasonable, look at this project and say, hey, is it going to work? Are we going to cause traffic or vehicles to park out on El Camino Real on an arterial road? We don't really want that. We want the project to function. And so I think we would give them additional concession if a lot of the folks here worked at Ash, or if they could demonstrate that a lot of the folks are taking transit and don't have a vehicle, or if they can demonstrate they can have other accommodations. So we have to look at all of those things and apply some discretion, but I think the applicant can also fill in some gaps on some of these details here.
And I hear you on that, and that's why hopefully the Housing Authority again has some metric information is saying that, you know, for the last how many years this place has been operating, this has been the parking demand that we have. It's either been greater or less than what they supply. How many cars have the 1-unit bedrooms have typically, or the 2-bedroom or the 3-bedroom, and so on. I did note that you have the comment about the state law that the city would have to provide a parking study, jurisdiction-wide parking study to justify any, I think, denials on that issue. On condition number 2, what exactly are we expecting from the applicant with respect to clarification on parking requirements that indicate compliance with California Government Code parking ratio. So what's the expectation that they're going to give to us?
So for that one, we just want to be 100% sure that they have the ability to reduce the parking under a concession beyond what the maximum that we can require. And just to double check with Haslo, and maybe they can provide some metrics as part of that.
What type of material would that be? Is again that they have metrics that says that a complex or 1-bedroom units that we have been renting and leasing for the last 15 years. Here's a car demand from those units. I don't know exactly what it is that they are, or even do they understand what they need to provide to us to make set the proof for the reduction.
Yeah.
We need to know.
Yeah.
But applicant discussion, I think that we need to have with the applicant still.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to hold on my questions until after the applicant's presentation. So if the applicant would like to come on and do their presentation at this point.
Sure.
It sounds like you're going in and out there, Heather. I'm sorry. Your voice, I can hear bits and pieces of it.
Sorry. It's a building I'm in. It's called concrete. I might have to move what room I'm in a minute. I said I'm going to hold my questions until after the applicant's presentation or our discussion with the applicant.
Great.
So I'm going to let Adriana Cook from Eris Design Studio speak.
Yeah. Hi.
Hello.
I'm trying to see if I can share my screen.
There should be a little green button.
Yeah,
towards the bottom.
oh, there we go. It wasn't letting me pick what to share. All right, should be. Here we are. So we are proposing to add another building to the Mcadara apartments. And I'm just going to touch on kind of what John said. I don't want to reiterate anything, but maybe just kind of explain where we're coming from and what we're trying to do. So as you know, this is the site here. This is just a street view just to orient us. These will be 100% affordable for rent apartments. They're owned and professionally managed by Haslo. And it is located on El Camino, close to transportation and amenities. We are adding one building with 6 units for a total of 5 apartment buildings and 25 apartment units. And then, as you know, per the state density bonus law, we are asking for a couple concessions. Those are the reduced parking. And a big part of that is because this is an existing site. And so we are adding as much parking as possible. We are also converting, the site does not have accessible parking right now. And so our goal is to make this site, not only the buildings, but also be as accessible as possible. And so we are converting existing units, we're adding accessible units, and we're also converting the existing parking stalls to make some accessible parking. With that, the drive aisle for that kind of takes away a parking stall, but we are adding 5 additional parking stalls to what's there, and we're really constrained by the buildings themselves. We are also asking for reduced storage. It's really tight, and we tried to get as much storage and stuff as we can get in here. The community building does have some storage, but that's all that we've got. So on the parking landscaping, we are hopeful that we can, there's 3 parking stalls, which I'll get into in a couple slides, that we are adding, and we think we can get a landscape finger in there, but this is kind of something that we've been thinking about recently and weren't able to get into the initial set. So we're hopeful on that portion. So this is the overall site. The new proposed building is building 5. It is pushed back all the way to the setbacks in the rear to try and keep distance between all the buildings. With that, we obviously had to locate the existing play area, and we plan to put a new play area here near building 5 with new equipment. We've also added an outdoor patio and barbecue area at the community center, and we'll be remodeling the existing community center. These are the parking stalls we're altering to make accessible right in front of the community building. And then the other shaded 5 stalls are what we're adding and are currently not there. And as you can see, our parking lot is very tight. We're also revising the, or proposing to revise the trash enclosure, which now does not have accessible access and can only hold 1 bin. So we're proposing to make that larger. And then here's the location of the possible landscape planter, which I've done and it fits, but we just weren't able to include it in this review. So again, we're hopeful that we can meet that and not need a concession. This is the overall of the community center. It's very much like it was before with the siding and the stucco, comp shingle roofing, just adding some paint. And then the new building is, our goal was to keep in kind with what's there. So again, stucco, comp shingle, siding, and then the plan for the whole center is to repaint. So, and that is the presentation. And I also have Michael Burke from Haslo is on the line to answer any Haslo related questions as well.
Thank you, Adriana.
Looks like Michael Burke has his hand raised. I'm going to go ahead and let him speak now.
Hi, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Good afternoon. Thank you, John and Adriana, for your presentations. I am the construction director for the Housing Authority. As you guys know, we have a couple of apartment communities in Atascadero, Mcadara here being one of the older ones that we own and manage. And before we kind of get into the specifics of parking and the concessions that we talked about, I'd like to kind of back up and give you guys an idea of what we're trying to do with this site as a whole. So as John mentioned, this is a 19-unit existing apartment complex that is unrestricted from an income standpoint. And what that means is we can house anybody we want there and charge basically whatever rent we'd like in line with our mission. And so one of the things that we've realized over the years is that this apartment complex needs a lot of renovations. And one of the ways that we're able to renovate existing buildings like this is we bring in tax credits. And that's obviously a state program. And to be able to create an investment for the state to leverage all of the money for the renovation of the existing buildings, we generally like to create new units as well. And so that's where this kind of 6-unit building comes into play. The actual, yes, building 5 there. The actual unit breakdown is, I believe we're just doing 5 1-bed units and a 2-bed unit. The existing buildings have a lot of 3-bed units and 2-bed units. So you guys get the sense that the 25 parking spaces were serving a much larger, denser project that's been operating for decades. And that the addition of this newer building, more like 1-beds and just a single 2-bed, just trying to leverage the dollars to bring more renovation money into this project so that we can do the paint, like Adriana mentioned, build a community building, renovate the playground, and basically renovate the insides of the existing units as well. We come in and get rid of plumbing fixtures, cabinetry. We upgrade, all the finishes. And there's some other elements to this site, like the staircases that are kind of, and more or less in disrepair that we need to address. So all of that comes into play with this application. And so we're asking everyone to consider the concessions from a standpoint that we are going to restrict the project to 80% of area median income. And generally, we chase funding sources that will even target a deeper population than 80%. Which means either 60%, sometimes we go down to 40%, and sometimes we go into the very low bracket as well. But we can't commit at this stage to those income levels, which is why we propose to you 100% low income project at 80%. But we often go lower than that once we get the financing. In terms of management of the parking spaces, I don't have transportation related data today. I could get that as part of our next step, but again, we've been operating this project for decades, and we're kind of looking for, just a gut feeling on how we can move forward to try to get this project in a position where we could renovate these buildings, add some units, and beautify it. John mentioned the bus stop out front. I don't know the exact employment of our residents at this site, but I can also find that data. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys may have in terms of how we're going to move forward with this project. And we can obviously add EV parking stalls. One of the challenges that Adriana kind of touched on is when we bring the state in, we're required to have 15% of the units as fully accessible units. And that kind of changes the whole parking dynamic. Obviously, accessible spaces are much larger than your standard space. So we're going to push and pull to try to meet the state's mandate for accessibility, bring a more inclusive community in here from a disability standpoint. But that often means that parking gets kind of constrained, right? And so we're going to have to work through that. But yeah, happy to stay on the line and answer anything you guys might have for me.
Thank you, Michael. Hopefully everybody can hear me better. I moved locations. At this time, we'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. If we have any callers on the line, please push *9 on the phone to raise your hand to speak. Or if you're watching via computer, please raise your hand on the bottom portion to speak. Looks like we have one caller with their hand up.
Yes, I'm going to allow the caller with the number ending in 1753 to speak now.
It looks like they're muted. There we go.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi. My name is Debbie Garcia. I live in Mcadara Gardens. I've been there almost 30 years. I'm the longest resident there. I really don't feel there's need for more units. Our parking, we do not have 5 parking stalls. Housing has 3 of them that they claimed. We cannot get guests in there. We only have 2 stalls. As far as street parking, it's off the hook. Past California Manor, the streets are full. If for the disabled people as myself, that's a long walk to get back to your unit if you have to. A rec center, I don't feel we need a rec center. We have everybody in the neighborhood that comes to our playground. I don't feel we need any more things on our property. For years we've been told it was going to be having a facelift, and the units were going to be worked on, and nothing's been done. And now all of a sudden, you guys want to put more units. There's no control in those units. There's lots of problems, and there's going to be more problems with 5 more units. So I know it sounds good to you guys, but you have to deal with the problem at hand that goes on now with the people that live there, because it's crazy. It's not a nice neighborhood anymore. It used to be. Now it's not. People want to move who's been there a long time, which is bad. As far as the playground being moved out towards the front, I think that's kind of a danger zone for our children. We have a lot of little ones, and they're in our parking lots playing, much alone be by the road. That's not a good scene. Somebody's going to get hurt or killed, which wouldn't be a good thing. I'm trying to get everything in as fast as I can. I got a lot to say. Like I said, I've been there a long time. Our storage, we don't have storage. We have no privacy. So there's a lot of other things that need to be addressed in putting new units, I feel, or a rec center. Hello?
We're still here.
We're listening.
Yeah, so in short, we just need to get control of our units, and there's a lot of work that needs done on those units. They've been pushed to the wayside for a long, long time since housing's taken over. I used to live there before when the original owner had sold it to housing, and it was always kept up. And we don't even get sprayed for pesticides. We used to get it every 3 months. We don't even get it. We have to ask, and even at that, we don't get it. So I really don't feel this project should fly. As a person who's been there a long time, almost 30 years, if anything, you guys need to invest the money in the units, in the property, and bring everything back to par again. It's fallen so much apart. And that's about all I have to say at this point. I'll leave the floor back to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Mariah, do we have anybody else that wants to speak for public comment?
I'm seeing no hands at this time.
Okay. And it looks like we don't have any other additional callers. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And is there anybody watching this presentation that would like to speak at this time for public comment? Okay, so we will close public comment and we'll bring it back to discussion amongst the DRC committee members. Dennis?
I appreciate the comments by the Debbie who lives there and what she refers to. From my understanding from Michael's conversation, it's one of the reasons for the additional unit or the new units is to be able to maybe meet some requirements that the state is requiring so they can leverage money to make the improvements on the other units, which I do think is important. Personally, I'm less concerned about the shade tree parking, and for me, it's a non-issue. I'm kind of speaking out loud and wondering about storage in units, and again, it's very valuable. I'm wondering if there's been any thought about maybe providing some upper storage in the bedrooms along the corners of the walls and the ceiling, or something like upper cabinets of some type, where it's kind of dead area, but it can be used for storage, shelving, anything like that, so people can put things up and away in those areas. It's a difficult issue. I'm very sympathetic with what Debbie was saying, and I'm wondering if the housing authority is able to provide any improvements to the existing units without having to leverage the property with the new building. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan?
Yeah, that's my understanding also, that the effort to, the expansion is part of leveraging money to be able to accomplish a renovation. And that was not clear from the packet, so it was very helpful to hear that from the applicant, that that's, that this is, you know, of a piece of, you know, that the renovation is part of achieving renovations is part of the goal here. I want to come back to the play area because you know, I did find in the packet, I can't really read this last page of the packet, but it is, that does have some images on the play area that sketch it, but it's not clear to me whether that's going to be enclosed in a way or whether, based on what's on the other side of the property line, whether it's functionally enclosed so that it's safe for you know, it will be young kids using this. This location is within good walking distance of Highland Park. So there's plenty of space for bigger kids to go and run around and get their energy out. But you know, the smaller kids you're going to want to have under supervision. That's got to remain safe for them. And I just want to make sure that that gets accomplished. I would, the parking situation does concern me, and I would, because if I run the numbers correctly, we're looking at a situation where you've got that all of that, you know, one parking space per one bedroom unit, one parking space for each 2-bedroom units, and 3 of the 3-bedroom units would have only 1 parking space. I mean, that's really tight. And the functionality of this gets hard for the residents if you've got people who are working jobs, maybe they're working late at night, you know, the 3 to 11 shift, and you come back and there's no parking. Then you've created a situation that is difficult and unsafe for residents, because if the unit simply can't accommodate what it needs to. I'd love to see if they can see if you can do, you know, add some tandem spaces or do something that would maybe somehow accommodate, you know, a little bit more parking on that site. It'd help a lot. And also to understand whether or not we are legally required to approve it with such a substantial reduction in parking, you know, following Member Schmidt's question. So those are my main concerns, and I'm mindful that the resident, who I appreciate calling in, you know, is giving us the, you know, the on-site skinny that, yeah, the parking isn't really sufficient now to accommodate all the current needs, which means it's going to get a lot tighter with the new project, and that is concerning.
Emily.
Yes, thank you. Couple of questions following up on my question previously regarding the intent to, or the requirement for the applicant to submit a complete landscape design prior to Planning Commission. Do we have the ability to, or are we within our kind of appropriate, is it appropriate for us to make requests or recommendations specific to the landscape plan at this stage?
Yes.
I ask because my recollection is, and I haven't driven, I have to admit, by this since I looked at the project, but that section of street, because of the frontage of this project, has some runoff and erosion issues I'd like to see addressed with the landscape plan. I feel like, and I brought it up on Google Street View just to verify that it was this project I was thinking of, and I believe it is, unless improvements have been recently made, but I think there's some erosion control and runoff issues along El Camino Real at that frontage. So while I understand the need and the concern for additional shade trees in the parking lot, my concern is actually more focused on the appearance of the project from the street and the runoff conditions that that currently exist there. I also am concerned about the parking count, as Susan was also discussing. I am wondering if the applicant could speak to whether or not potentially assigning or dedicating spaces could help guarantee that each unit has at least one on-site space. And does staff know, or does the applicant know whether we have enough to do that? And is that something we could consider? So that in the instance where there are homeowners who are coming home late at night or at odd hours, you know, within their household, they could make arrangements to guarantee that there was a spot available for them on site. Those are my primary thoughts at the moment.
Just to respond to that last question, Emily, that you had, you know, in a lot of these projects, they do assign parking spaces to units. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes it becomes difficult though, just from a management perspective, and
Sure.
you know, it becomes sometimes further restrictive when some folks don't have cars or some folks don't use their cars, and you know, there's other spaces that could get freed up, but there are options to that. You know, if we look at the state density bonus law, you know, our maximum what we can require is quite a bit above what they're proposing. You know, I think under the state requirements, we can require, you know, 2 spaces for every 2-bedroom, 2 spaces for every 3-bedroom, and 1 space for every 1-bedroom and studio. That would bring it up to about 39 spaces given the unit number count here,
Right.
while they're proposing 29. So, you know, the maximum we can require under that law with an affordable project is above what they're proposing. And even though it's less than what our code would require, yeah, oh, there's the chart. It's that number's in there, 39.
Yeah.
There you go. So yeah, it is a significant deficit. These things are significant when you don't have a neighborhood with cross streets and residential scale streets. When you have an arterial road, these are significant issues. That area around the state hospital is high-speed traffic, arterial road, very few opportunities to cross the road. And it's a long distance to get to services, restaurants, transit, store, all of those things. So it's very transportation dependent, unfortunately. And a lot of these areas in south of Tuscadero are like that. So these are all things that we need to take into consideration when we look at state law and we look at issues like health and safety. You know, is that going to cause a public health or safety problem or an environmental problem, or be contrary to law? And those are things that are within our purview in a project like this.
I'm understanding of your comments, Phil, but still the staff report has a section saying that the city cannot deny a requested parking concession unless it has conducted an area-wide or jurisdiction-wide parking study in the last 7 years that provides substantial evidence for higher vehicular parking ratios. Are we as a city willing to do that, then, to consider denying any concession in parking?
No, I think there's a reasonable concession needs to be offered here. I guess the question is, how far do you go? We're not mandated to give them whatever they want in terms of a parking concession with that caveat. True, we haven't done an area-wide study here. I think common sense will tell you that what the study is going to come up with in this particular area.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that they do deserve a concession in parking. And I think it's very valuable that we are going to gain dedicated affordable units out of this, which are very difficult to get in our community. And that's long-term affordability, regardless of ownership, that'll be deed restricted. That's not in place today. That's very substantial. And so I think it's definitely worthwhile, the credits. I think from staff's perspective, we just want to make sure that where's that happy medium, that balance in terms of the concessions and what they're providing. And is it, you know, given this site area here, is it possible to add a couple more spaces or, You know, can we be more flexible on accessible parking? Well, that's really going to be a state thing. And is there other things that can happen here, or should we just make sure that at least each unit has one parking space? But you know, our past knowledge in these things, it does lead to forcing some vehicles along the arterial roadway, and we've just got to be careful about that, especially when it may cause pedestrians to want to cross El Camino Real.
All right, Susan, I'll get in just a minute. I want to have a give my take on this, and then I'll open it up to Susan. And it looks like we've got Jeff Van Den Eyck joining us as well. I think that based on the information we were provided in the packet and hearing some of the community members that live there come out, there's an existing parking problem. Adding an additional unit is not going to resolve the parking issue. It's going to compound that issue, in addition to the other issues they're facing with renovations and relocating play areas. So as we start to go through the DRC discussion items, it talks about site design, landscaping, and architectural design. I think it's important to really have that conversation of, is this project ideal in the long run that's going to address issues or going to create more issues in our community? Susan?
Yeah, I was wondering, another on the parking consideration, one other option might be, would the applicant be willing to give preference to residents who either don't need vehicles and don't own vehicles, or who work at ASH, so that you know, I mean, that is our area's largest employer, and they can easily walk to work, so you don't have the same kinds of problems. You know, there, even if you have a vehicle for other types of activities, that could be safely parked, even if it has to be parked along El Camino Real, if it's not going to be used all that often, if somebody's going back and walking back and forth to work. So if we can manage the demand for parking, that might help the situation where the supply is physically constrained.
Tough.
I'm not sure that us as a design review committee can put some of those items in place. We can make recommendations, but the enforcement therefore is going to lie upon management team and the tenants to work that out. And what we've heard from one of the other tenants there is they already have an ongoing issue. By approving this project and letting it go to the next step of planning, are we contributing to the challenges that they're already facing? Jeff, you wanted to chime in?
Yeah, a couple things. And sorry about being late. I didn't realize the city had changed its email servers and I couldn't get in my old way.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. A couple things. One is, you know, I review these kind of plans all the time, and I don't know that you could get more parking on that site. It's going to be very, very tight, and especially with site distances coming in and out of there. Susan asked the question about the play area. Based on the aerials that I'm seeing, that would actually be a pretty secure location. There's a fence in between that and the Sunrise Apartments, which are right behind it.
Okay.
So I don't think that would really be an issue. I am quite concerned about the amount of parking. I'm looking at the aerial of the site, and almost every spot is full. And I'm not sure what time it's daylight. I'm not sure what day of the week it is, but I mean, without this extra building, it's already full. So, you know, obviously we do need the affordable housing in our community, which I appreciate, but yeah, that parking is certainly going to be an issue, I think. The other thing that I wanted to ask the applicant about is, you know, how they plan to mitigate some of the stormwater requirements. You know, this building, the project was built prior to some of the current stormwater requirements, and a lot of times these developments are put together on paper and they don't take in consideration what the new stormwater requirements are going to require, and sometimes there's not enough space. So I just wanted to see what they had in mind for that as well.
Can I interject just quickly? They did submit a stormwater control plan that was approved by our Public Works Department.
Okay.
Phil?
Yeah, that's all I have.
Okay. Phil, how do you want to go down the order of discussion items? Do you want us to weigh in? Do you want us to give staff direction? What's the best approach for you?
Yes, if you're done with questions at this point, we have a couple options. We can, one, ask the applicant to come back with additional information if we don't feel like we have enough information to make a determination. Or two, we can offer direction to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission can deal with any unfinished business on the project. So at this point, DRC can take an action based on that and proceed.
So under site design, obviously parking is the #1 issue. How does the committee feel about the maximum density bonus requirements of 39 versus the applicant's requested concession of 29? Dennis?
I'm just kind of brainstorming and wondering if there's anything the city can provide to the applicant for them to make more parking. I know we've had projects in the city where we use tandem parking, and up front, there's 3 spots that could be doubled up by having a tandem parking relationship, and maybe then dedicating those 2 spots or those tandem spots to units that have 2 cars. Just to the north of the property along El Camino Real, there's some space there behind those units. Could we not allow for another driveway so we could have some parking in that area? I mean, can we maybe loosen some rules to allow for there to be more parking?
Phil, I guess that's a question to you. Unless John wants to talk about it.
With the rest of the DRC. I mean, there are options for tandem as long as those spaces are shared amongst one unit. It's always problematic when you have tandem and there's 2 different units and you got to wake up your neighbor because he's asleep. But you know, there's certainly options we can look at in terms of flexibility to how to fit the vehicles on here. We're open to that as long as it can physically work and be compliant with code and accessibility. It's certainly an option if it's feasible.
So it sounds like at this point, we can't come to a determination on parking, but perhaps we make a recommendation to Planning Commission that parking needs to be addressed and resolved at Planning Commission level, or do we want to put a number on it right now?
That might be a little bit vague just to say, hey, it needs to be addressed. You're kind of kicking it down the road. It's a little bit tough one, but yeah, I mean, you could do that. I think also though, the DRC should say, we believe that, you know, there's a solution and here's the number. We believe that perhaps the number of new units needs to be reduced and you need to add a couple of tandem spaces. Perhaps, you know, basically if you feel the parking number is okay, you can say that. If you feel it's not okay, you can also say that and suggest ways to work on perhaps bringing that number closer.
At this point, I'm not comfortable with 29. Does the rest of my committee agree with that?
I agree.
Yes.
Yes.
Dennis?
Yes.
Okay. So with that being said, are we more comfortable with 39 and a recommendation to the applicant on how to achieve that based on conversations with city staff?
I don't know that 39 is an achievable number on this property.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I was looking at, you know, if you have a space for, you know, we've got, could you go back to the count of the units by that? Because I'm, okay, yeah, thank you. So if you look at, you know, 11, if you do 11 for the the 1-bedrooms, you know, so each one has a unit, and 7 for the and 1 for each 2-bedroom unit, and then 2 spots for each 3-bedroom unit. That gets you to 32. So it's only 2 more parking spaces, and I think Dennis is right that, you know, that it looks like there's room maybe for tandem up front that might be able to accommodate that. I'd certainly like to see that, or ask the applicant to consider, can you do one less ADA unit and have 2 spots in one of those places, or make some adjustments in the location of that ADA parking in order to accommodate at minimum 32 spaces.
Okay, does the rest of the committee agree with that? Dennis?
I would be willing to be flexible on anything to create more parking spaces. I've suggested the tandem spots. There is some locations in front of those close to El Camino Real. I can see 2 more spots there. I'd be interested in reducing the landscaping to create more spots. Anything to help out the project.
Okay, I was just getting ready to get to landscaping with that recommendation. Jeff, are you okay with 32 and trying to push for his? Okay, great. Okay, so with that being said, we're giving staff direction that we're like to 32 would be our focus point, but maybe a little more if we can. That takes us into the, yes.
Could I add one more suggestion? I also think that there's other potential locations for the trash enclosure that might free up an additional spot.
Okay.
I
so
think that should be taken into consideration as well.
Okay, so let's look at that with the landscaping. So as we're trying to make recommendations to the applicant, Emily, since you brought up trash cans, is there some way, Phil, that we can adjust the landscaping parameters that are set in this committee packet?
Yes, that is something that is adjustable.
Okay, so staff could work with the applicant to relocate the trash enclosure, work with putting in tandem parking, and reduce a little bit of the landscaping to accommodate the tenant's need for parking.
I think with the parking and with the trash enclosures, we have to think of function. And that was one of the things the applicant had brought forward, is that moving it to this location was much more accessible for the waste company to pull in and empty out the trash cans. And, someone's got to yank those things out and put them back in. And so having it in the convenient spot for the trash company is extremely important. So that needs to be kept in thought, I believe.
Okay, so staff has got direction on the landscaping and the trash components. Anything else to add in that area, those 2 areas? Okay, architectural design. Staff is looking for feedback. The applicant had talked about using the similar products than the existing building. By the sounds of the one of the tenants speaking, it sounds as if architectural design should include renovations as a huge focal point. And it sounds like if they're able to get grants and go forward with this project, that they will be also renovating at the same time. Is there any additional feedback for staff on architectural design, on the colors, the textures?
No, for me.
Emily?
No.
Susan?
No, I think the key thing is to be able to have them to stay consistent with what's already there and make sure that it's upgraded in functionality and looks nice interior as well as exterior, so that residents are encouraged to and supported in maintaining their spaces.
Jeff, did you have? Thank you, Jeff.
I have no additional comments on that.
Okay, so I guess, Phil, have we given the staff? Sorry, Phil, you're the only one I can see of the staff right now in the pictures.
That's fine. You can pick on me all you want. Yeah, I think I've heard the direction. I've just been brainstorming about different ideas as well, but yeah, I think we've heard enough. I think parking is definitely going to be the constraining factor. And when we take this to planning commission, maybe we'll think of some other ideas to bring up, and maybe the applicant can come up with a situation where they can guarantee that some of the units could be restricted, deed restricted to persons who don't own a vehicle or don't drive, and maybe that'll help us be more comfortable with the numbers.
Yes. Appreciate it. Thank you to the applicant and the staff for putting this together. Looking forward to having more affordable housing in our area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, going on to the next item. Kelly, are you going to present on that?
I am. Mariah, can you make sure you give my correct account? Oh, I got it, I think.
This is like Hollywood Squares now.
We should play a game eventually. Let me see if I can put it in.
Who wants to be in the center square? Not me.
I just found earlier that you could actually move your picture of yourself into different areas. I had no idea.
Before Kelly starts, I will say that staff's really excited about this particular project, this vacant lot that's been sitting vacant for a long time over there. And it seems like exactly what the community would need for this site. Anyway, but I'm not going to spoil the presentation from Kelly.
All right, so this is on a vacant lot on the northern-ish side of town. And they're looking to put together a commercial development, which is exactly what we need on that side of town. We have a couple larger multifamily projects going up, and they're going to want a place to go and hang out.
Yeah.
So just real quick, I know we have a lot of new members. So DRC review in general, we're looking at implementing our general plan by maintaining the rural character of Atascadero, which does relate to intensifying sort of our core area to allow our outskirts to remain rural. Enhancing the appearance and character of the city by reviewing the architecture and site plans for these types of developments, and ensuring that development is compatible with the existing neighborhoods surrounding the development proposals. So this is the project site. I've got a couple other projects in here for reference. There's the Emerald Ridge development going in basically across the street that eventually will have 208 apartment units, for rent units there. They've started on that. I think they're building 36 of those 208 units currently. The Del Rio specific plan is just to the north on the opposite side of El Camino. And we've got some pre-proposals in for that will hopefully be coming forward soon. And then we have the Mission Oaks Plaza that was the old factory outlets that is unfortunately one parcel away from this one, but we're hoping that something eventually happens there as well. So this is an aerial of the site. It's actually two parcels right now, so they'll need to do a merger if they move forward with development before we give them occupancy for any buildings on the site. And you can see Bay Laurel Nursery is just to the south. And there's kind of this existing access condition that kind of covers both of the sites. And so the applicant is working on contacting the owner of the Bay Laurel site to see if they can maintain a shared access scenario for both developments. So we don't end up with two driveways side by side and they don't end up needing to move the driveway over closer onto their site. Project proposes a little over 20,000 square feet of commercial tenant space. They're hoping to attract uses such as restaurants, coffee shops, yoga studios, those kind of activities. It's about 2.5 acres, and they're not requesting any exceptions at this time. This is their conceptual site plan. They've got a large courtyard open area in between the two proposed buildings. There are some larger oak trees that they're hoping to retain as part of that design theme and make that part of the courtyard area. The parking is along the side and then the rear of the site. They've included the required Highway 101 buffer landscaping that's in our code. And then the trash enclosure is located here. We did have a comment, I think one of our conditions about relocating the trash enclosure a little farther away from El Camino Real. And so they did quickly in the last few days come up with a revised site plan that not only shows a relocated trash enclosure, but also shows some alternative design ideas for the access on the sides to allow for landscaping if they can't get that shared access condition, and that they can work with Bay Laurel moving forward with a little bit more detail. They have overparked the project, I guess I would say, from what would be required if we looked at it as a straight retail center. But knowing that they want to add restaurant uses and uses that might be slightly more intensive, they will likely need that additional parking. And so they are planning for that. The building is very contemporary in nature. It uses a lot of tilt up and board formed concrete walls. They have some exaggerated roof planes throughout the entire buildings. They've used decorative windows in kind of a decorative pattern that will kind of allow the light to come through and provide some interest on some of the walls. And then they have larger glazed storefronts to really allow light and to allow it to connect to that courtyard space. There's also a mezzanine proposed as part of the development if they were to get that type of use in there that wanted that mezzanine level. So this is kind of a view of the building that's on the southern end of the site that's facing El Camino Real. We do have a couple conditions to add some decorative windows to that facade. But as you can see, that facade is slightly sunken from El Camino the way it's designed now, and it is the shorter side of the building with the roof sort of ramping up towards the rear of the site. So just a few decorative windows will likely be able to sort of mitigate the blankness of the facade currently. And then this is the parking lot elevation of the building. They have added some trellises. We still need to do a building code review on whether those trellises can be there for to meet fire code, but we are hoping that they can retain the trellis in some form. And we have a condition for sort of some enhanced rear doors, just because that's a very visible part of the site as you're driving along El Camino, the way the buildings are set back.
Could you slide the screen up?
I cannot on mine because I'm doing the presentation. Does it feel like it's cut off on the bottom?
On the last one, not on this one though.
Okay. So here's just a couple images. This would be, the top image is an image that would kind of be from El Camino Real, a little bit tilted towards the most northern building that they're planning that has the entrance feature right off of El Camino Real. And then this is a view looking from that northern building to the courtyard and then through to the southern building and the mezzanine level. So in terms of review items, we're asking the DRC to provide input on the site design in general, the landscaping with, in particular, the perimeter landscaping on the sides, which I believe that they've accommodated decently through their revised site plan. The Highway 101 landscaping, which in their revised site plan has been enlarged as well. And then the trash enclosure design and placement. And I guess at this point, we would be commenting on their revised site plan and if that trash enclosure location is appropriate. And then we'll be discussing architectural design. So the design in general, and then the added features that staff has conditioned along the El Camino facade and the parking lot facing facades. And with that, my presentation is done. I know the applicant and their representative are also available and would like to give a presentation when we get to public comment.
Thank you, Kelly. So we'll open it up for committee questions for staff or the applicant. Dennis?
Yeah, I'm wondering about the comment that you made at the very beginning about the merger requirement. Is merger required because of the property can't meet setbacks if they keep the two lines, or what's mandating merging the parcels into one?
Yeah, I believe the way the buildings are situated, they certainly, this is a very conceptual design, and so they certainly could look at lot line adjustment options if they really wanted to keep the two lots.
Seems like it had more value if you had two parcels. Are they asking any, did not see within the report any discussion about highway signs. Has that been discussed at all? Freeway
signage has not been discussed yet. They do not know their tenants yet, and we're at a very conceptual level. So certain types of tenants allow for freeway signage and certain types of tenants do not allow for freeway signage in our code. And so a lot of that depends on what tenant mix they get in there.
But they could potentially have a highway frontage sign and the height limit is, what, 40 feet or something? For highway.
I believe it might be a little taller than 40, I'm not sure. And I know that restaurants are allowed to have a freeway facing sign. If they got a restaurant, they would be allowed to do that.
I'm very concerned about the highway frontage. And just in general, if you look at how it's being used now, people are having signs and feather signs and just everything along that area. So I'm very concerned about how that back area is going to be treated. I'm happy to see that the parking is there, which will help kind of mitigate some of my concerns. But I would like to have nice appearances along the highway frontage. Thank you.
Emily,
No questions at this time.
Jeff,
Yeah, I don't have any questions right now.
and Susan.
Given the location of the property, what other properties are going to see a lot of the roof on this property?
Bay Laurel.
Bay Laurel's too low, I think, to see
Right.
the roof of the property. Emerald Ridge and those properties along the other side of the street do have some slope to them. And so especially as you get back towards Rio Rita, you're definitely higher than the project. So they might be able to see some of the roof, but I know when you get up to Rio Rita, you actually look, completely over the freeway into the West Side Hills. So there's probably a small window that might be looking at the roof without anything else, but I don't think that would be a major visual impact based on how quickly that slope rises off of El Camino at that point.
Okay, fair enough. Then I'm not going to worry too much about the roof views. In the packet, and apologies that it's not labeled, so I'm looking at this page, which has a picture of thank you. And I noticed that what makes that softens on the drawings, it looks like a very industrial frontage. And in the visual here, what makes that softer are the reflection of the trees off the face of the material, so that you get the shadowing and reflection, and that is that something that we can expect with the placement of the trees that are in the design?
So they do have a number of trees along the El Camino Real frontage. They are in planter areas, and so we're probably looking at medium-sized trees rather than very tall trees, although some of these planter areas could be increased if we needed to accommodate a larger tree. But I think in general, even our medium-sized trees like our Chinese pistache or something like that would get tall enough to create that interplay of light and shadow. I think we are not looking for very small trees, which we would not get that from. We are requesting that these be a medium-sized tree.
Yeah, it's a relatively not such a compact tree, but one that's got some spread to it, so that you get that visual effect that would soften the exterior. It appears to me that we've got a pretty industrial looking backside to the buildings, which would be the south side facing Bay Laurel, and the north side facing an unknown owner of the use for the property that is between this property and Mission Oaks. That might be constraining to the uses of that property. I'm wondering if that could be just less industrial looking.
Yeah, so again, a reminder, this is a commercial park area that is kind of conducive to light industrial type uses, business park and things of that nature. So we do expect to see uses and buildings similar to this in that area. On the Bay Laurel side, they have some parking bays in between the building and Bay Laurel. So we'll have some trees within that parking area and some layering of those kind of things. We also have the trellis features as well. On the northern side, it's a little closer to the property, just separated by the drive aisle. Again, they are required to have, if they don't have a shared access agreement, they're required to have some landscaping along that side. And so we can try and make sure that any landscaping is used to layer and soften that side. You know, we've also conditioned
That north side?
on the north side, yes.
Okay.
Same time, we're asking for some additional glazing, some windows on those sides, and I think the DRC can speak to, you know, if they want to see changes. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to see that design in print, and when it is in real life in 3D, it looks a lot better. But certainly, it's something you can comment on if you think more needs to happen.
I think they do on this lower elevation, which are the sides facing Bay Laurel and that property to the north. You know, they have tried to do some things with material changes and overhang of the roof and sort of protrusion of the front and rear facade to sort of create some shadow and some inset. And then we're asking for the windows and sort of enhanced rear doors, but they could certainly do more if the DRC gives that direction.
Dennis.
A few things. With respect to the north axis right now, if there is an agreement made with Bay Laurel, will that north axis continue to circulate back to El Camino Real, or would that be removed?
The access would continue to circulate. That is a fire department requirement for the site.
With respect to that area, though, to help that parcel next door, could there not be a situation set up now so they wouldn't have the Bay Laurel situation where there could be that access could be shared with the parcel next door? And so
Yes.
when that develops, then there would be kind of a cul-de-sac or something at the end of it that will allow both parcels to have access to it?
Yes, we're always on the lookout for shared access opportunities between commercial developments. I know that, you know, Bay Laurel is actively developed and they are reaching out to that property owner. I think the property to the north, it would be more about this project recording a future shared access agreement and then allowing for that access to be constructed when the more northern property is developed, just because they don't know what's going there right now.
It's not a very big parcel with
Uses,
so-
but it would definitely help reduce the number of driveways in that segment. Yeah.
And lastly, at the very beginning of your presentation, you talked about general plan conformity with respect to characteristics and architecture. I particularly I'm not turned off by the design at all. I'm kind of an eclectic person when it comes to design. But with respect to city staff, has there been any comments to the applicant about conformity and characteristics of the building with the surrounding area?
So a lot of staff sees Atascadero as a very eclectic type of place. We generally look for a less eclectic look in our downtown area to make sure that we sort of maintain that more historic architectural pattern and theme. But really the rest of Atascadero we see as very eclectic, and being in our commercial park zone, we see this sort of, you know, semi-industrial, very contemporary look as something that a lot of developments are proposing right now in the area. So we did not give them any direction on architecture. We felt like this was appropriate for the area.
Somewhat likened to the, if you think of the funk zone, what's happening right now in Santa Barbara and how popular that style has become, where State Street has been in increased decline and you see areas that are industrial. Tin City is an example of that here, really. You know, in Templeton, where you've got a lot of buildings like that. Of course, this is far more attractive than what they built in Tin City, but oftentimes it's the signage, the colors, the land use, the landscaping that make it what it is.
Yeah, it's more that we also have, well, to counter the argument would be that we have the Mission Center, completely different architecture, the Emerald Apartments across the street. There's no compatibility at all. Where Tin Cities, you can't see because it's, you know, where it's located. Again, I think it's wonderful architecture, so I'm not turned off by it, and hopefully it won't become an issue in terms of general plan consistency later on.
A lot of times when we look at general plan compatibility, it's not always about the architecture, but it's sort of about the siting, and they've sited their buildings towards the street, which we like to see, which engages El Camino Real, and then they have a courtyard and sort of landscaped area. So, we look at those components in addition to, very specific design styles as well.
Well, that's good news. Thank you.
Speaking of design, do we anticipate that they're going to have painted murals like on some of the conceptual renderings?
I think that they could have that option. We do have sort of our mural code section and policy. They would need to submit for an AUP that I believe for an art mural is free, just to make sure that it's not commercial in nature, but they could definitely do that.
And then Phil, we had a consultant do a presentation about connecting our certain areas throughout our community with walkways, bike paths. One of these, this lot in particular was one that was indicated as having a possible connection with a bike path in it. Do you see that being an option later on if we try to connect the parcels?
Yes, it doesn't preclude us from that. Because of that rear driveway that comes through here and the rear areas that can link to the adjacent properties, we're not blocking ourselves out from that opportunity. So as these properties develop in concert, we have those opportunities that pop up so we can have areas that people can connect through properties. The most important thing is we don't create projects that isolate themselves from other properties so that someone has to go back out to the main road to get back into another property. A classic example of that is over there at the Food for Less Center. In between that center and Spartan Final, you've got you've got to get in your vehicle, drive out to El Camino Real and back in again to go to the next center. And I think projects like this can avoid that and certainly sets us up for a better position in the future to have connectivity.
Is the applicant aware of those consultant recommendations for connectivity?
We actually did send them that plan and that sort of preliminary concept design for that. And I think they did take that to heart a little bit in their design in terms of showing connectivity with the other parcels, knowing that they don't necessarily have control over that. But in terms especially of the vehicular connection that was shown on that plan, they definitely had that early on in their design work. And I think that they've tried to accommodate some of that in their site planning.
Perfect. Yes, it's a very open site plan. Okay, does any more committee members have any questions? Okay, then we're going to ask for the applicant to come on and do a presentation or talk with the committee.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I did have one more question.
Sorry, I couldn't see you.
I figured I was probably put it off your screen. In the on the page that looks like this, at the bottom of the inspirations and materials, there's a green wall shown. Where is that on the property? Where?
So yeah. So the applicant's representative can maybe best answer that. I'm not sure that all of those components that they're at that level of detail yet. I think this was more an inspiration sheet of the type of style they were going for, but certainly their representative could answer whether or not they're looking at actually putting that into the site plan somewhere specific.
Sure. That just seemed like a really nice feature and a good counterpoint to the more industrial element. I mean, this is a commercial industrial building, but it seemed like a nice piece. I just was trying to find it. Thanks.
Okay. And our Mariah is our applicant.
Yes, Kelly, can you confirm, is Moretz Wellen the applicant?
Yeah, she's got her hand raised.
Okay.
Diana Garcia and I believe people in the Morrison family are maybe on the call. I can't see the list right now.
Okay.
Can't tell you, unfortunately, but
I'm gonna go ahead and let Diana speak first because we know for sure there is someone else with their hand up, but I'm not quite sure if they're part of the applicant team. So I'm gonna let Diana speak now.
Hello, this is Diana. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hi. So my colleagues, Moritz Villan and Irina Kostia, they are actually going to do the presentation. I would like to have the owner, Garrett Morrison, start with just a few comments, and then Moritz will continue with the presentation, and then Irina will answer questions that you might have.
And Diana, do you have a visual presentation that you're going to do?
If you can go through the plans,
Okay.
Moritz will have a visual presentation. Yes.
Okay, we will allow him to share his screen when he.
Yes.
comes
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm allowing Bob Morrison to speak, so hopefully that's Garrett.
Hello. Can everybody hear me? This is
Yes.
Garrett. It's Garrett Morrison speaking here, and actually Bob Morrison is here as well. Just wanted to introduce myself. So I'm Garrett Morrison. I was born and raised here on the Central Coast on a cattle ranch out off of Highway 58. I've been around real estate my entire life, and I absolutely love it. I went to North County Christian School. I went to Atascadero for a while. I'm in Atascadero every single day. I love the town. I want to see it grow. And I kind of feel bad when everybody talks about the Central Coast and they're like, oh, you got to go to San Luis Obispo, or you've got to go to Paso Robles. And I'm like, you guys, what about Atascadero? I mean, it's a beautiful place. And so that my grandfather had purchased this lot years ago, and it had just been sitting vacant for years. And so I had brought to him the idea of creating a commercial complex kind of along the lines of the Funk Zone in Santa Barbara, because I used to live down there and I enjoyed that area so much. And I was like, Atascadero really needs a place where people can go and they can actually stay there and hang out and just bring the family. It's a safer environment. We have the center corridor where, you don't have two buildings with a parking lot in the middle. We have, I want this complex to be a place for the community, a place where people can come, hang out, and they don't have to worry about getting back in the car to go down the road to something else. And so that's just kind of a little gist behind the idea and the process with this complex. I just wanted to fill in really quick because you had mentioned about signage on the freeway. I don't plan on putting any signage on the freeway due to the layout of the structure. The structure itself, my idea behind designing it so that you could see into it from El Camino and Highway 101 is that it's going to present itself. And hopefully when people drive by and this is, it's lit up, the oak trees you're glowing at night, you see, people out there, this and that, it's going to present itself. And then another point about kind of putting in to the works, future possibilities with shared accesses with our neighbors. I really want to work with everybody. I mean, it really helps any project to get done to work with everybody rather than go against the flow. And so this design here has been made so that the neighbors to the north and south, we can all come together to use the access ways. That's just a little bit behind that. But I'll let Moritz give his presentation.
And Moritz, I believe you're able to speak whenever you're ready. Diana and Moritz, you're both able to speak whenever you're ready.
Yes, Moritz is calling in his computer. He has some he has some issues. So he is calling in so he can be heard. Is he able to share the screen?
Hey guys, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you, Moritz.
There we go. Awesome. Sorry about that, everybody. So I just wanted to start. My name is Moritz. I was the designer, part of the team here on this project, and I want to just thank everybody for being here and taking your time. I'd like to address a couple of the design issues real quickly. We have not had a chance to resubmit anything yet, but we have already included windows along El Camino Real on both of the low elevations to address those comments. And we have also decided to bring that warm barnwood design that you see facing the courtyard wrap around the other side. So the building will have a overall more consistent design, a warmer design, and hopefully complement the adjacent structures even better than it currently is. So to share our vision with you guys, we want to create a place where people want to stay, socialize, enjoy great food and beverages while being able to appreciate and find pleasure in the outdoors. A vision of a community of restaurants, local breweries, mixed with great indoor and outdoor entertainment. The big beautiful oak trees acting as a central focal point and the link that ties the two structures together, allowing the design to develop around them quite naturally. Our plan is to build two structures, 10,000 square foot each, on a 3.4 acre site that is composed of two vacant parcels. The buildings embrace and pay tribute to the oaks who were there before them, with a modern industrial look that works well with the surrounding neighborhood and structures, while remaining original and distinct. The simple sloping roof shapes that work in synergy with the land also remain functional when controlling stormwater management, sunlight. The site has been designed to accommodate most of the parking at the rear, adjacent to the freeway, allowing the buildings and central courtyard to face El Camino Real. The site is designed with a loop driveway to allow larger trucks and emergency access vehicles to enter and exit the site without turning around. In addition to this, the parking circulation also gives access to the neighboring properties. Our material palette instinctively gravitated towards a simple, warm, and inviting combination of reclaimed barnwood, corrugated metal, board-formed concrete, corch and rust accents, and large glass panels for tons of natural daylight. So we are really hoping that this structure, these two structures, are going to be a beautiful addition to the community, and we are here to work with you guys and to hear your comments, and we're open for any kind of suggestions, and we want to also work with the neighbors to keep their interest in mind and to potentially look at also doing an easement towards the nursery for a shared road, like you guys mentioned earlier. So thank you, everybody, for taking your time to listen to this, and we're super excited to be here. I know Diana, myself, and Irina have worked as designers and architects in Santa Barbara, seeing the funk zone, seeing what that brought to the community, and Garrett and I actually went to college together and have enjoyed that together as well. And it kind of inspired us to bring this to Atascadero and just make an awesome addition to your beautiful community. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have another presentation or collaboration?
I don't think so. I'll reshare my screen so we can see the project.
Okay, great.
We do have Irina just raised her hand, so I put her in to talk. Are you there, Irina?
I see her on here, but I don't hear her.
It might be possible that she's not on, or maybe she's muted.
It doesn't look like she's muted, but I can't.
Okay.
Irina, press *6 to unmute yourself. Try that.
Or 9?
No, *9 is if they're on a phone, but she's not on a phone. She's in
I
the meeting itself. I can't say that we all don't have technological issues. The joys of not being in a building together.
I just texted her and she said that she is going to call in. Perhaps she had some technical issues.
Okay, thank you. We'll give her a moment to call in.
Okay.
And while we're working on that, Madam Chair, might I make a comment?
Sure.
With apologies, I need to drop off now to take care of another urgent city matter. But I really appreciate what the applicant has done in bringing this forward. I am personally in favor of funk zones.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
And also, I think that the site design has, I'm pleased to hear about the greater warmth of the wraparound materials. I think that'll, along with staff's accommodations, take care of the questions that I had raised about the more industrial basing on it. I like the relocation of the trash enclosure. And I'm very much appreciative of the project coming forward. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, I don't see Irina called in yet. So what I'm going to do is wait. I'm going to open it public comment, and if she comes back on, then we'll reopen applicant presentation. Maria, do you want to confirm that real quick?
Irina, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
All right. So Kelly and Morris kind of took care of, introducing you to the project. And so I'm really here just to answer any questions that you guys might have. I am the architect on the building. And I believe I heard that Susan dropped off, but one thing, if she's still there by any chance, one thing I did also want to mention is that the green wall we had talked about is on the back of the building facing the neighbors. So I think she'll be happy to hear that. That'll also soften that facade and make it a little bit more inviting.
Okay. Do we have any other additional questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair?
Yes. Emily.
I have one question just regarding a slight difference I'm seeing between the conceptual landscape plan and some of the conceptual elevations and renderings. In several of the renderings and elevations, there is a series of palm trees in front of the southerly building, building A along El Camino Real. They're not shown on the conceptual landscape plan. In fact, there it shows, I think, native grasses and a bioswale. I wanted to just confirm what the intent is there, and then just express a personal opinion that perhaps palm trees aren't necessarily, while I like the design in general and all the other landscape suggestions, the palm trees may not be as appropriate for that neighborhood.
Yes, we definitely, as staff, do not allow palm trees as part of our commercial development landscaping.
Yeah, guys, I can go ahead and speak to that. So the palm trees are simply there. They were there for a design reason. The intent for that location is to serve stormwater management control as a bioswale. So that is the landscape plan is the correct layout.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm gonna now open it up to public comment. Any of our callers, I'm gonna ask that you mute because there's a little bit of feedback, but feel free to stay on. Maria, do we have anybody here to speak for public comment? Please raise your hand. If you are on the phone, please hit *9 to raise your hand.
I am not seeing any hands raised.
I'm looking through our list. Okay. It looks like we have a few other participants. Are you guys looking to speak at public comment, or are you just here for the presentation? If you're looking to speak, please raise your hand. Okay, we will close public comment and we will take it back to committee discussion and go through the staff discussion items. Let's start with site design. Get my paperwork here in order.
Looks like Dennis has some questions there. He's got his hand.
Who is? Hey, Dennis.
Hey, here I am.
There you are. I can see you
just
now.
want to say that I appreciate the site design and I appreciate all the thought that went into it. I do have a question about the, one of the presenters talked about solar access to the buildings. And I'm wondering if any study has been done to define how much light will be coming into the courtyard and into the buildings around the courtyard. It's more of just maybe a functionality thing for me. I'm not seeing it, but it might be there for the solar access portion of it. But I really appreciate all the thought that went into the design. They're very thorough.
Thank you. Okay, site design, city staff. What are you looking for us in regards to recommendations on site design?
I don't know that there needs to be much comment about site design other than the general layout of the site, which I think we've heard positive things from members about. And so if we wanted to move on to landscaping, unless somebody has a pressing general site design comment to make, we could probably do that.
I don't see any hands raised, so we'll go ahead and go on to that. Okay, landscaping, perimeter landscape, setback sides. What are you looking for?
So I believe that they've accommodated most of that with their revised site plan. So I think it was just reiterating that they do need to landscape the side setbacks if they cannot get some shared access agreements with the adjacent properties. And they have increased the 101 landscaping to the full 10 feet with their revised site plan as well. And so I guess just an endorsement of those features that they've redesigned and then endorsement of the new trash enclosure location.
Okay. And then we've already discussed the minimum 8 medium street trees shall be provided.
Yeah, our code requirement in terms of spacing for street trees. If there's a particular species or size that you would like to see, you can comment on that.
Dennis.
I just kind of dumbfounded by the amount of sycamores and other trees that just shed leaves. I mean, it's nice to have them, but they're awfully messy. And so hopefully whatever tree selection there'll be would be consideration of the maintenance of that, and also the spillage over into the right of way, into the streets, because I see our maintenance people cleaning a lot of culverts every year because of the amount of leaves that are in them.
Yeah, we actually have a street tree list that we've developed with our Public Works Department. And as you can probably imagine, there is no perfect street tree because all of them drop leaves at some point in time and all of them want to be trees and spread their roots as far as possible. But we do have a narrowed list that we've collaborated with our Public Works Department on trees that they approve for adjacent to the right of way. So we will be choosing trees off of that list.
Thank you.
And then access doors facing Access driveway parking areas shall be consistent with architectural theme, shall be more decorative in nature due to high visibility. I think this committee has recommended additional windows or more changes to the outside view on the north side of the building. Is that correct?
Yes, and I think that green wall helps. And if you would like to make sure that that green wall is maintained, you might want to add that as just an endorsement of the green wall along that rear facing facade.
I think Susan was a fan of the green wall. Is everybody else a fan of the green wall?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we'll add that. Next is going to be architectural design. Design theme. Do we have any changes from or recommendations from what the applicant has submitted? Dennis, you're first up. You're the first one I get to see. And then Jeff, if you want to chime in after Dennis.
I have no comment. I think it's a beautiful building.
I did spend a lot of time on it. Thank you.
Yeah, I would echo what Dennis said. I think it's a really nice looking building that will be a draw to the community. That's for sure. Yeah.
Okay, Emily, do you have anything to add?
No, I concur. I think it's interesting and be a nice addition to that side of town. I would just reiterate that perhaps one of the ways that we integrate it is through the landscaping and the palm trees don't necessarily achieve that. So.
Okay. And Phil, I think that we have another building that is down on El Camino that has a slanted roof as well. That's currently going to be adding to a similar style. Is that correct? More in the industrial siding. I think that we put a slanted roof over the top of theirs. It's more down by the hotel.
The Cook mixed use project.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Over it's further south. That's closer to Kennedy Fitness and 777 Options location. Yeah.
Okay. So similar concept.
Yeah,
Okay.
in that same kind of zone.
Does staff need anything else from design review committee?
I think that is it. I will mention that Kelly just backed me up on it if I'm correct. This project can now go directly to developing construction plans and set up a construction permit application with us, which is great. And I will also mention that there is a time limit to coming in with a construction permit. And I think you put a condition on there, did you, Kelly, on that?
We did. We're looking for people to submit within 6 months of DRC endorsement, or we kind of reevaluate to make sure that no code sections have changed or use requirements have changed. So we're looking forward to seeing that permit application come in within the next 6 months.
Excellent. So I wanted to thank the applicant team and the DRC, and we look forward to working with these folks on this project.
Thanks again. It's a beautiful conceptual design. Thank you. Okay, on to housekeeping. Committee member comments and reports. Okay, on to the most pressing thing, director's report, and then discussion of next meeting times.
Yes. As always, I'm here to answer questions about development happening in the community. I don't have any specific items to report today, but would like to lead you to the discussion about meeting time. Unfortunately, Susan has left us. I know she has some constraints.
She gave me her recommendations before she left.
Did she? Oh, that's good. Perfect. The difficulty we have from staff's perspective is Mondays and Tuesdays are pretty much off the table, partly because of our notification requirements and our timing, and partly because of conflicts with City Council, Planning Commission, and other hearings. So really, we're restricted to Wednesday, Thursday, because we often lose attendance Fridays, and some staff are in, some staff are out on Fridays. So it's pretty much Wednesday, Thursday. And afternoon in terms of public availability seems to be the best. So I'm going to leave it at that. I think from staff's perspective, we have some flexibility within that, but it kind of narrows things down. The Wednesday at 2 actually was working great, but we really wanted to have Jeff on the DRC, at least the council did. That he's got a conflict with that. I believe that Thursday at 2 is a good time, but it might be a conflict with HDOC on certain times, and I'm not sure if that works for the others. So anyway, I'll stop talking and let the DRC discuss that best time to meet based on public participation and what you can accommodate in your schedules. Now, keep in mind that it's not every 2 weeks or every month the DRC is going to meet. It is sporadic based on demand and based on projects. So that's another caveat that I will throw out there. And we are flexible when we can have some of those meeting times.
As I wrote to you in your email, I'm completely flexible for any time, any place, anywhere.
That makes it easy. Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you, Dennis.
Well, it seems like I'm one of the ones that I actually happen to be a project manager for a large project down at Port San Luis, and we have a standing meeting at 2 on Wednesdays, but right now it's on Zoom, and I could be available like at 3 on Wednesdays. So starting a little later. So that wouldn't bother me one bit, starting a little later on Wednesdays. Or Thursdays, I can typically do Thursday afternoons.
I know in the past, Phil, we talked about pushing the DRC meetings to a later start time at 3. I know when we physically meet, we start getting into a parking issue. Sometimes we even have it at 2 with the junior high. But I don't know how you feel about that, because sometimes we run 2 or 3 hours. And if we do, then that pushes us, like today, we'd be at 5:15, staff wants to go home. You know, we start to push it for getting done on a timely manner. Susan was open to Thursday, Friday, 1:30 or later. I can work around it. It's tax season, so that makes it a little bit more of a crunch. But again, I'm flexible to the rest of this committee. So Jeff has the most restrictions. So you could do a Thursday afternoon.
Yes.
Okay. I know none of us want to meet on a Friday. We're done by the end of that week.
That is true.
And 3 o'clock, so 3 o'clock is okay, but yeah, we sometimes run into conflicts with the school. I mean, it's okay for us to go after 5. It's just up to the DRC, you know.
Well, and if we push 3 presentations like projects like we did in the past, then there's no way we're going to get done before 5:30 or 6. So I'd probably be more amenable to changing it to Thursday, probably at 2. That'll give us a break in between council too. And planning. So does anybody else have any objections to that?
Sounds good to us, staff.
Okay, now when we go back to regular Zoom, we might have to reevaluate our lives. So you'll give us some leeway with that, right? We can reevaluate and rethink.
Yeah, it's a whole different world right now. So as it stands now, as we're on virtual Thursday at 2, that sounds good for us. That sounds good for, I think, the committee members. I think there was a little bit of an HSOC issue with Susan, but I think she had flexibility on, you know, it's only sporadic, so we can time around that and juggle that. So we're fine.
Perfect. When is our next meeting scheduled, or what do we have coming up? And then the second question I had is, have we heard on Barrel Creek?
Annette, I don't think we have anything in the works yet, do we, Annette? Do we have anything that's gelling for our next schedule? I don't see anything on the calendar.
What happened to Dove Creek Promenade?
It's there. It's still there. And they are working on a revised design that they're going to come back with. But at the same time, that same development group is working on 3 other development sites in the city. So they're incredibly busy because they're also working on the Grand Oaks project. They're in escrow on the Walmart property. They're working with a design plan for the property that formerly held the Kailana restaurant. So they have a lot going, but they're definitely coming in with another concept plan on Dove Creek, and they've responded to a lot of the community comments and and the DRC comments. So I think we're really looking forward to that. It's done a lot of good things. You also mentioned Barrel Creek. They have kind of vanished in a way. They have not come in with an official application yet. They still are on the property. They still are talking about it. They just haven't come back with a design yet. Appears COVID may have slowed them down. I'm not sure what's happening with their financing, and they're kind of remaining quiet at this point. But it's still a potential project that's looming out there.
Okay.
Where's that
Any-
located?
Del Rio, on the
Okay,
west side, Del Rio.
okay.
And then if the incoming DRC committee members want information on prior projects that are supposed to come back through, Dove Creek Promenade, did you want to give them our last one, or did you want them to have fresh eyes? Just only
Well,
because
when
they're
we,
pending.
when we come back to the DRC, we are going to give you what you had before, and then
Okay,
show
good.
you the evolution of what it's changed to. I mean, predominantly, it's still going to be, well, it's a residential and commercial mixed-use project that's anchored by a boutique hotel, residential units that buffer it from the existing units that are at Dove Creek, and then sort of a park-like setting in the center that is bordered by some small-scale commercial uses and potential interim uses, with a lot of the parking hidden underground below that park space. So it's a really neat concept that tries to invite the neighborhood into this plaza-like space, have a place where, hey, if you're having family events and, you know, Thanksgiving, Christmas, people can stay in a boutique hotel right there on site, but they can also enjoy the site amenities. And then there's full-time living units on the site as well. So it's that kind of combination that they're going for. But in our initial couple hearings on that, I think there was a lot of concerns from the community, from Dove Creek neighborhoods, about scale, about design, about massing, about overlook, about compatibility. And so I think that the applicants addressed a lot of those issues now in the project. And well, obviously we can't really talk about the project because it's not on the agenda, but I can tell you about it. Do you have anything else to add on that note, Kelly?
No, I think that sums it up. I think they're looking to stay within the same concept, just address some of the height concerns. So no super drastic changes other than those that the neighborhood has commented about.
I bring it up because we, as DRC, had told them that there would be multiple hearings, and so they were back-to-back meetings, and then these two projects came in and then it fell off the schedule. So I wanted to make sure they hadn't withdrawn, or if it just got bumped due to timing issues. So
They absolutely have not, and they're working a lot on it. They just have a lot going on at the same time. In fact, we have a standing meeting with that development group every Thursday, and we're meeting with them tomorrow, and we'll be discussing that very project. So yeah, they're very attentive.
Well,
There was a discussion in the minutes too. I remember reading about I was really shocked about the underground parking. But that's
Yeah,
why.
so just as a point, Dennis, because I know you haven't seen it, the site has about 20 feet of elevation from the internal streets. And so it's kind of a under semi-subterranean parking that they're trying to do.
Still expensive.
Very much so, yes.
All right. Well, thank you for all your help, staff. If there's nothing more, I'm happy to adjourn this meeting.
Thank you.
All right. This meeting is adjourned. Have a good day.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye, smiling faces.
Au revoir.
Bye. Bye.